Willow, you've been following Cat Lake since February. What's the latest?
Well, we received a statement today from Cat Lake, the chief of Cat Lake First Nation, Chief Matthew Kiwe-Cabo. He's calling it atrocious that a former consultant is expecting to get paid over $1 million from the community's housing crisis. Last week, the Globe and Mail reported that Thunder Bay consultant Jerry Paulin was to get paid $1.2 million from an agreement that Cat Lake signed with Indigenous Services. In the statement, Cat Lake says they will not be paying him shocking amounts of money. It reads, the notion that Jerry Paulin was responsible for getting money for Cat Lake housing is inaccurate.
So tell us a little bit more about this agreement that they made with ISC.
Right. So the agreement comes back in January. Cat Lake declared a state of emergency for its poor housing conditions. Inspection reports revealed dangerous levels of mold in many of the houses there, and leadership and community members have long believed that the mold problem is linked to children and elders and other community members getting sick and even dying. So after that state of emergency was declared in January, they reached an interim agreement in February for $10 million, and that would get them some new housing units and some housing supplies in. That's also when Cat Lake says they ended their relationship with the consultant Jerry Paulin. A final agreement with Indigenous Services was reached last month for just over $12 million. And housing units and supplies, I just want to note that some of that has been delivered to the community now by the Winter Road, but we know that it's still not enough and that there are still some families who won't be getting new housing, and that continues to be a real major health and safety concern there.
So what's next for Cat Lake and this consultant?
Yeah, so we heard from Paulin today in an email. He called it an awful situation, and that he's worked long and hard for Cat Lake, and many members and elders have contacted me to offer their support, is what he tells APTN. In his statement, Chief Matthew Kiwe-Cabo notes that the mold issue in their homes is something that they've been working on with the feds since the 90s, long before Paulin was ever hired as a consultant to work with them on housing issues. So the chief says in his statement again, the idea that Jerry Paulin or any consultant expects to get $1 million windfall out of money that we desperately need for houses for Cat Lake families is atrocious. He continues to say that Paulin knows the desperate state of our housing situation. His claims for this huge payout are demeaning to all the families who are suffering in Cat Lake. Further in that statement, the chief says they haven't agreed to paying Paulin with the housing crisis money, but they've proposed options that are being reviewed right now.
Very interesting stuff. Willow, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Melissa.